Chapter 4. Reflection of a Fallen Angel. Second Death. Revelations 21:8. But the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Damien awoke in a cold sweat. All his life he had these horrific nightmares, even before his crucifixion on top of the asylum. He stared at his wrists. They still bled from when he had healed all those children that were handicapped. He felt as though all his blood was drained. He walked away from the campfire he had made, which was already burned out a long time ago, and began walking towards a huge cave that rested within the side of a huge steep wall. He sat down in the front seat of his car, pulled out his laptop computer, and rested it upon his legs. When his computer came on, he was shocked to discover the time and date. "What the hell? This couldn't be right," he said to himself, confused. He logged on to the internet and clicked on weather and the time in his area. It was no mistake, it was the same. "This can't be. How could I have been asleep for 2 fucking weeks?" he groaned. He closed the laptop, tossed it to the side, and walked wearily out of the mouth of the cave. Then he headed towards a small meadow of water north of his campsite, kneeled down, and splashed water on his face. Then cupped his hands and poured water on his hair as he ran his wet hands over it. The water was cold, but he felt he needed a bath. So he stood up and went back to his small campsite, opened his black duffel bag, pulling out some shampoo and a bar of soap. Then a towel. Next, he took off all his clothes. When his last piece of clothing fell to the ground, he shook his head. "Why do you always show up at the most inappropriate times for?" He knew who was watching him.
How do you do that, Damien? I can't ever fool you, can I?
A female voice giggled. "You know, sometimes I think you do this just because you like making me uncomfortable, Gamora." He headed towards the water.
That and the fact that you've got a nice ass.
She giggled. "Yeah, it goes great with the scars on my back," he said sarcastically. His back had scars from his stigmata.
I've seen worse. Besides, I only look at your ass anyhow.
She chuckled. "You know you're too old for me," he spoke.
So what? So I'm over 1,000,000 years old in human years. I still feel the same old juices running through me.
She smiled. "Gamora, you're very beautiful, but I still love my wife, and that will never change," he replied while washing his back.
But she gave up her soul to Lucifer. You can't go on like this forever alone,
she said, realizing she said too much. He stared at her angrily.
I'm sorry, Damien, but she didn't deserve you. Just tell me this. Can there ever be a chance for us?
Gamora asked. He shook his head. "Maybe, but you must give me time and space. And I don't mean literally." He laughed. He began shampooing his hair. Gamora slipped her clothes off and headed towards the water where he was. When he ducked down in the water to rinse the soap from his hair and came back up, there she was, right next to him, directly in front of him, naked in the water. He turned his back to her. "No, Gamora, I can't," he said sadly.
It's been 10 years, Damien. You have taken the world upon your shoulders, never getting the love you deserve. Quit denying yourself. Let me wash you. Is that too much to ask? She said, smiling.
She ran the soap gently over his body. His eyes His eyes closed, for he was tired and it felt good. He hadn't been touched by a woman in a long time. He had almost forgotten the warmth of a woman. She pulled his hair slowly to one side and slowly began softly kissing his neck. Gamora, he spoke gently, turning around. What if he wins? What if he kills me? She stared into his eyes.
Damien, I would never let that happen. I would take you from this world for myself before I'd let him have you,
she replied. He knew she wasn't joking, and he knew how powerful she was. He stared at her, and at that moment, seen how truly beautiful she was at the He stared at her, and at that moment, seen how truly beautiful she was at the I'm very sorry. He stared at her, and at that moment, seen how truly beautiful she was as the sunlight glistened on her hair. She pulled him into her. She gasped, as did he. They began kissing hard and passionately. He squeezed her breast with one hand, and with the other reached down, holding her up in the water by her buttocks. He carried her up to the bank where the land meets the water, and they made love. As they laid there after making love, she asked him,
Damien, I sense that you have a lot on your mind. You're not planning on fighting Christian now, are you?
He didn't say a word, just took a puff of his cigarette. She became afraid and sat up.
Damien, tell me you're not going to do something foolish. There's no way you can win. The only reason he's let you live so far is because he needed you,
she informed him. Well, I've had enough. I've fought little battles off and on with him for 10 years. It's gone far. It's time I kill him. End this game for good. Damien took a puff again.
Damn it, Damien. It's not your place to do that. You can't use evil to kill evil. You'll only make him stronger, and the good in you will be lost forever. Just find your brother. That's what the angel told you to do, she said angrily.
The way I figure it is, I don't owe God a thing, but I'm willing to risk it all to get rid of this evil son of a bitch. I'm tired of it. No matter what good I do, he ends up making me look like the bad guy. Damien spoke.
What do you mean?
She asked. He ran me off a cliff, then gives me the usual song and dance about working with him. When he gets in his car, he makes it look like my black Cadillac, and I could see him take on my identity. There's no telling what damage he's done using my body and face. I mean, what would Jesus have done if some guy was running around with his body, acting like him, and using his body to kill or make people suffer? Damien sneered.
Actually, people have claimed they were him for years, but I get what you're saying. He's framing you. That's another damn good reason to stay away. There's no telling how many people he's got looking for you,
Gamora pointed out. No, the longer I hide from him, the more powerful he gets. I'm going to kill him tonight, Damien finished.
I won't let you go off on a suicide trip, Damien. I love you, and I'm not about to lose you,
she commanded. If you love me, you'll let me choose my own path, Damien replied.
Damien, once you attack him, I cannot help you. Those are the rules. You know he's just been playing with you all these years. Don't go raging a war with the Prince of Darkness. You're just a man, you're strong and you heal fast, if you're not hurt too badly. But he can kill you, she pleaded.
Well, the way I see it, if God cares for this world at all, then he'll be in my corner. If I die, it'll be because God allowed it. Damien began heading towards his car. Lightning and thunder exploded in the sky. Damien smiled and stared up at the dark clouds. Yeah, that's right. I know you heard me. I'm gonna take out your worst enemy. Just me, just one man. Damien gloated.
Forgive him, Lord, for he knows not what he does. Help him, God. Don't let him die. You know why he acts the way he does. He has suffered so much. God, give me a sign. If he's meant to win against Lucifer, say nothing. If he is gonna die, turn this water to blood.
Gamora prayed. When she opened her eyes, she became bitter. The water had become blood. Before she could warn Damien of her vision of death that would befall him, he had disappeared. There was nothing she could do. There was something Lucifer had that Gamora had never told Damien, because she felt it would have killed him and made him even more bitter towards God. But now the dark secret would spell his doom for sure. That night, the black Cadillac sped into the entrance road of the school. Damien stepped out of his car and walked towards the front doors of the school. The doors opened by themselves, as if to welcome him. He knew Lucifer would see him coming from a mile away. When he walked through the double doors, they slammed behind him, and chains wrapped around the handles, sealing it shut. Walking silently down the hallway, he stared forward. The lights flickered off and on. A paper airplane whizzed past his head, and he could hear a little kid giggle, yet there was no one around. Lucifer! It's time! The game's over! Damien yelled, and his voice echoed through the hallway. The lockers that aligned the hallway began slamming open and shut by some invisible force. Cute trick. I would have thought you could do better. Damien insulted.
What's up, Damien? I'm in the gym. Hurry, I got a surprise for you.
A demon cackled over the intercom. I got a surprise for you too, asshole, but you probably won't like it, he replied.
Aw, Damien. You'd better hurry. Don't want to be late for class. I wouldn't want to have to flunk you.
The voice over the intercom cackled evilly. Hold your horses, Peckerhead. I'm coming, he replied. Finally, Damien made his way into the gym. It was dark and cold. Too afraid to show yourself? What a pansy ass, Damien insulted repeatedly. The lights came on, revealing 3 dark figures with their backs facing Damien from across the basketball court. They all had long trench coats, and they were spread out, each standing 10 feet apart. Oh, am I supposed to be scared? Ooh, I'm shaking. Damien acted as if he was shivering from fear. Lucifer came out onto the school stage, yet still manifested as the man in white, Christian.
So, I assume you have decided to do things the hard way,
Christian asked, with red eyes glaring and tiny, pointy, razor-sharp teeth revealing his sadistic, evil smile. I'm not here for a social call, if that's what you're wondering, Damien replied.
Well then, let's quit wasting time. Let's get this party jumping,
Christian responded, and at that moment, teenagers began filing in systematically onto the bleachers. The students had a blank stare as they all sat about like an audience for the fight of the ages. They all stared at Damien. They appeared to be brainwashed, without a soul.
I so love an audience,
Christian chuckled.
Now, let me introduce you to my associates. Mary, turn and face your husband, please.
At that moment, in the right corner of the gym, one of the dark figures turned to face him. In horror, he realized it was his dead wife. He gasped. "Tell him your secret, the one you took to the grave, Mary," Christian demanded. "I was never pregnant with your child. It was another man. The same man I ran off with the second time. The child was born handicapped. I just told you that he was crippled by the man I was with, so you would take care of us, so you would pity me. If I had not told you the child was yours, you would have not taken us in," she finished with no expression. Tears began to swell up in Damien's eyes. "Isn't that disgusting? All these years you lived in hell, slept only to be exhausted by nightmares. The woman you loved betrayed you, lied to you, and when this bitch died, you went nuts and ended up institutionalized." Christian shook his head in fake disgust. Damien could barely hold in his rage. "Now it's time to see who the baby's father truly was. Please, turn around," Christian demanded, and the second dark figure turned around. "Yes, your best friend, the lawyer who convinced you to sign the agreement, stating your wife gets everything should something awful happen to you. And guess what? Here's something to fuck your already messed up mind worse. Your wife was never murdered. It was all a sick hoax to drive you nuts. And it worked. While you were heavily sedated in the nut ward, your wife got it all. They got married and lived happily ever after. Of course, Damien, they made one fuck up. They signed their souls away to me, and because of their acts against you, I've tortured their souls over and over ever since. They didn't go unpunished because, Damien, old buddy, old pal, I'm your friend, and friends take care of each other." Christian smiled. "Why would you care?" Damien asked. "Because God didn't. You and I are a lot alike. All we ever wanted was love, respect, appreciation, but we got fucked. God didn't make any of us so we could fulfill our simple pleasures. He made us to fulfill his own selfish wants and needs. Who wants to bend over backwards for that shit? Why work so hard to never be rewarded? Do you know what heaven is like, Damien? You can't have sex. You can't watch any scary movies or good action flicks. You can't go to a Grateful Dead concert. Believe me, I know. I was there. It's a boring place. It was a living hell for me. Imagine what it would be like sitting there, staring down at all these ignorant people who pray, wondering all the time why it is that there's disease and suffering. Why God allows travesty to take place. You know, he never answered me when I asked him the same question. So I said, why not let me rule? Why not let me make a difference? Hey, you're not doing anything, just sitting on your ass," Christian ranted. "But you hate us," Damien replied. "You're damn right I do. But you would too. Take that handicapped school, for instance. When that little girl asked you to heal all those sick kids, you said it's God's responsibility, and you were right. Just before you got there, you told the witch Gamora that I was messing up everything you did good. Oops. Well, when I or any other angel did something good, man praised God. And when something bad happened, I was the ultimate scapegoat. God himself even entertained this idea that all bad things are because of me. Why do you think a third of God's angels followed me? We got tired of God taking all the credit," Christian replied. "So you're no better than God. You pulled the same shit on me," Damien spoke. "No, I was trying to teach you a lesson. I was making a point," Christian replied angrily. "Well, maybe God was teaching you a lesson." Damien spoke against him. "Damien, I am prepared to give you everything you want for the taking," Christian spoke. "And what can you give me? A woman who is brainwashed into loving me? Children who obey my every command with no free will? A world without hate? Because you control them to do your bidding? Damien retorted.
What do you want? A woman who will cheat? Kids that walk all over you? This world needs a little control. Fuck who you want, love who you want. Love is only an illusion anyway, just a feeling that always ends in pain.
Christian ranted. Damien stood silent.
It doesn't matter anyway. You can either choose to get with the program or die. It's your choice.
At that moment, the basketball court and the entire gym began to quake. The ground opened up in a perfect circle. Fire spewed forth from the giant pit. Damien never did get a chance to see that final dark figure. He watched Christian push his wife and the man into hell.
Make your choice, Damien. I grow weary waiting for your answer.
Christian spoke angrily. Damien said nothing.
Very well. I have someone else who shall take your place.
Andrew, kill him, Christian demanded. When the dark figure turned around, it surprised Damien. The man looked identical to Damien, except older.
Who the fuck is he?
Damien yelled.
I'm your father.
Lucifer,
I'm your father. Lucifer resurrected me from the past. You should have joined us, son. It would have been better for us all. But today I wash my hands of your blood, and I will baptize you in fire.
Andrew stated.
I don't know who you are, but I never had a father. But I promise you, if anyone goes in that pit, it'll be you,
Damien threatened. Andrew made his way over quickly, and Damien stared his father down. His father stood silently with a cold expression on his face.
Why are you doing this? I'm your flesh and blood,
Damien scoffed.
It's too late. What's done is done. The sacrifice must be given,
Andrew replied.
Without me, Lucifer can't win,
Damien yelled. Andrew struck out, grabbing Damien about the throat and lifting him high into the air.
I'm the chosen one,
Damien gasped for air, legs dangling in the air. Andrew shook his head and finished by saying,
No, you little fool. Your brother was the chosen one, Fabian Andrews. Lucifer just used you in hopes that you would lead us to him. And you did. You were given a choice to follow us, and you delayed for 10 years. So now, son, it's game over for you!
Andrew said, throwing his son Damien into the flames of hell. Andrew stared with a blank face towards Christian.
He chose this, Andrew, so don't look at me like that,
Christian warned.
I stopped your suffering, and without me, you would lose Fabian, and you know this. Why lose two sons just because one won't listen?
Andrew nodded slowly. He understood. Andrew walked away into the darkness. As Andrew stood outside the school, he stared motionless. All was quiet.
I never expected you to do this, Andrew.
A woman's voice could be heard. Andrew knew who it was even before she stepped out of the darkness. It was Gamora.
It does not matter. What is done,
he spoke.
Andrew, when was it that you lost your grace? Why do you help Lucifer? I thought you were better than that. You have the gift to save humanity. Why help in its destruction?
She asks.
Mankind is a creation of God.
I will never participate in any way to support a god that lies and deceives, Andrew replied.
So you'd rather help Lucifer, the prince of evil, than God? You know Lucifer only stands by you because you are one of the time possessors. He doesn't care about you or your children. I don't understand what you hope to gain in all of this treachery, Andrew.
She shook her head. I hate God. He is a liar. Don't you realize God allows this? All of this? God created us all. He created Lucifer and all the angels who have done as they wish to all humanity. God created evil. This is the way God meant for things to be. Andrew spoke.
No, Andrew. He gave all life free will. He gave us life in hopes that we could prosper,
Gamora argued. Don't you get it? There is no free will. God knows all things, for He is the beginning and the end. He knows every choice we'll make before we make it, whether it be good or bad. He knows who shall go to heaven and who shall burn for all eternity in the flames of hell. He knows everything. Mankind has no chance as long as God makes men whom He knows before they're even born, before they even exist, will lead a life of sin and die in sin. Do you know what is worst of all? What do you think happens to those children who die before they are saved, before they are baptized? What happens to those babies that never learned, those who never had the chance to receive the word, for we are all born of sin? What do you think God does with a child conceived or born of sin that never had the chance to live the life of good? For it does say He judges us for our labors and deeds. All that child has is the sin he was born with. God knew man would fail. He knew Adam and Eve would commit the sin that would plague humanity for all time. For all who eats from this tree shall surely die. No. I will never follow a God like this. Andrew finished.
You've made the choice that will ensure your doom, Andrew. It is obvious where your heart lies. I pity you. You, yourself, have the power to change time. The suffering in this world, though you hate God, why not help humanity?
Gamora asked. If I myself did do the works of good and miracles, mankind would glorify God. God would benefit and would be given credit for my good deeds, but as long as I help in its destruction, man will hate God, for it would be God who has allowed this. That is my goal. Andrew injected.
I'm disappointed in you, Andrew. You are sick. You're nothing more than another Hitler. Just looking at you makes me sick. Yet at the same time, I see God's love and mercy. I can see His eternal, undying love for you even as we speak.
Gamora stared into his eyes. Andrew was confused and off balance. What are you talking about, witch? He sneered.
By the fact God has allowed you an opportunity to do what you do, just show His mercy and compassion for us all, even you, Andrew. Can't you see it? Every time you take a life that is innocent, every time you commit evil, it just shows God's patience. If God so chose, He could wipe you and Lucifer out of existence with nothing more than a gesture or thought. The fact that He has not done this shows His wisdom, His love, giving you the chance to make the choices you make. You say God makes men whom He knows would burn in hell. But Andrew, you could still ask His forgiveness. You could right this second, become almost a savior to humanity, even if it means God is glorified in the process for your good deeds. It was God who gave you this gift. It's up to you to use it for good or bad. In the end, all you will have proved is that God is just and loving.
even for a foolish, wretched little man such as yourself,"
Gamora finished. Andrew stared at the streetlight and watched as moths danced around it, his mind in total delusion. He now began to feel something strange filling up inside him, and it scared the hell out of him. It was like cracking ice on a lake, and you're standing directly on top of it. You know what's going to happen, yet there is no escape, because you were foolish enough to go out that far. As the cold water engulfs you, paralyzing you, there is only one thing on your mind, as you desperately claw at the ice, trying to climb back up. I'm drowning, and it's all my fault. Andrew held his hand over his mouth. His eyes darted back and forth. Millions of thoughts clouded his mind, trying to help him justify all that he had done. But his heart already knew the truth.
"Your son, Damien, is dead, Andrew. Slain by your own hands. You threw your own child into the flames of hell. Will you do the same to Fabian?"
the witch asked. It was then that Lucifer appeared out of the darkness, clapping his hands.
Bravo, bravo, Gamora. I commend you for your efforts. But it's too late for Andrew. He's already mine, as well as the stone.
Lucifer cackled.
"He can be forgiven. God will forgive him,"
Gamora replied angrily.
"God forgives men. Andrew is not a man. He just hasn't figured it out, for he has forgotten his own death. Andrew was resurrected unto spirit,"
Lucifer smiled. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not dead. How could I bear flesh? Andrew asked.
"You're not even Andrew anymore, fool. But I will allow you the opportunity to learn the truth of who you really are. The truth may destroy you. Even if it didn't, you'd wish you were never even born."
Lucifer cackled. Both Andrew and Gamora stared at each other, puzzled.
"Gamora, put your hands upon Andrew. Look deep into his mind. I think you will find something very interesting,"
Satan commanded. As Gamora slowly closed her eyes and began searching Andrew's mind, she gasped in horror. First came an image of a man carrying a cross up a hill through a crowd. It was almost as if she was there. She looked around the crowd, but could not seem to find Andrew.
"Where is Andrew? I've looked everywhere,"
Gamora asked.
"Keep looking, you'll find him."
Lucifer appeared next to her in the dreamlike state. As Jesus fell to his knees, exhausted, the dream changed sequence. Now the witch watched the back of Jesus being whipped hard, huge wounds surmounting on his back. She looked everywhere but still could not find Andrew.
"Where is Andrew? All I see is the crucifixion of Christ taking place. I have searched every face, yet I cannot see Andrew,"
the witch spoke angrily. Now she found herself staring at scattered images of Jesus being hammered to the cross, his hands and feet, the sound of laughter and mocking. She turned her head, feeling sick.
"Continue to watch. Soon you will see Andrew,"
Satan demanded. Still nothing. Then she saw a man in a white cloak with a hood covering his face, standing deep within the crowd. She hurried towards him. However, it seemed like the closer she got to the hidden figure, the further away it became. Finally, she reached the man walking away towards the desert, away from the town.
"Hey!" she cried. "Show yourself! Are you Andrew?"
The man stopped in his tracks and stood silent.
"Who are you?"
she asks, stepping in front of him. The man stood there but said nothing. Moments passed, and then the man slowly removed the hood, revealing himself. She stared in horror when she realized who she was looking at.
Jesus? How can this be? How are you here? I saw you being crucified, she gasped.
I am the Son of God. The prophecy has been fulfilled. I am within the man who suffers, and I weep, for I suffer his pain, and the sins of the world, as does he, Jesus replied. Now when a man hurts and is persecuted, I shall feel it too. That is the price I have paid. I have accepted the responsibility for all time, as I live in the hearts of men.
She was shocked.
Who is the man on the cross, while you stand here?
She asked, frightened.
It is I, manifested in the flesh. The body was just a vessel I inhabited, which is now dead, and with it my blood shall give life. Now I must do what is foretold. I am to ascend into heaven.
And with that, he disappeared. Gamora rushed back to the town, fighting her way through the crowd. She stared up at the cross, and she began to quiver in utter fear. It was Andrew.
No!
She cried.
This can't be possible! What have you done, Andrew?
Andrew looked down at her and gave a gentle yet sad smile. I had the power to go back in time. I had to see him. I had to understand. The sins of man needed a body to possess, for God is perfect and cannot ascend into heaven with that which is evil. Yet he will suffer the pain of man, even as my body dies and I am no more. A single tear fell from his eye.
Now, this is the mistake Andrew made.
Lucifer laughed.
It wasn't God's will for Andrew to take Jesus' place on the cross. Andrew came back in time and somehow managed to take the place of God. He offered himself, claiming to be Jesus. He damned the whole world with his unclean flesh and spirit, creating a paradox in time. Now, time will overlap from here to the point in which he travels back in time from the future to die. Ha 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 ha. In doing this, all things will repeat and I will forever be eternal.
Lucifer laughed. As Gamora came back to the present, she stared at Andrew in the school parking lot. Lucifer was confused.
Andrew, you've seen the mistake you've made, so you know what must be done,
Gamora asked.
Yes, I will never go back in time. Forgive me, God, for I have sinned. Destroy me, Gamora!
He cried.
Excuse me.
He cried, and she rose her hands, and he was engulfed in flames. Lucifer knew that time had been fixed. He knew that it was changed back to normal. Andrew was dead now, and Gamora stared at the Prince of Darkness.
I know why you showed me that. I know what you wanted.
The witch spoke angrily.
Oh, do you now? And what was that, witch?
He chuckled.
If time was at a standstill, you'd never have a chance to win. If all things repeated themselves, you'd have a chance.
She spoke.
You're a very clever witch. Yeah, you got me figured all out.
He smiled, walking away, spitting on Andrew's burnt body. Nevertheless, something was wrong. She felt very uneasy. She didn't realize the world was about to get a big surprise. Lucifer had planned this all along! End of chapter 4.